So, hello, this is Yujin Tang coming from Chicago, Illinois at the University of Illinois, Chicago. I'm sitting with Bhagya. She's a PhD student here. And you can introduce yourself a little bit better than I can, so why don't you go ahead and do that?
Yeah. Thank you, Eugene, for inviting me to this interview. So I'm Bhagya Dewage. I'm originally from Sri Lanka, a small island nation in South Asian region. I'm a PhD candidate at University of Illinois at Chicago, attached to the School of Public Health. I also happen to be the president of a student organization. It's the Student Alliance for Public Health and the Environment, and also the USA focal point for the North American Youth Parliament for Water.
Awesome. Yeah, I love what you're doing. I love that you're doing environmental stuff. So I'm going to have you talk a little bit about your what you're doing with the student organization for public health here.
So basically the mission of the Student Alliance here is to bring together the faculty, students, and also alumni who are working in different fields of public health. But as we were talking, environmental also climate change, it's not just an environmental issue.
Right.
It impacts different perspectives of our lives, including the stability of governments, economies, and also our health.
Yes.
So that's what we are focusing on as the student organization. In addition to that, the North American Youth Parliament for Water is a platform where we provide a platform for this young professionals who are interested in water sector, especially water scarcity. It's a main issue. So so we are basically focusing on the Sustainable Development Goal 6.
What is Sustainable Development Goal 6?
It has everything to do with water, water scarcity, water sanitation and hygiene. All this comes together. So I'm sure you're familiar with Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations.
Yes,
So
yes, I've seen them.
yeah, so that's what we're doing, and we're trying to provide these opportunities for young professionals to raise their voice as well as to gain some experience in leadership roles. So that's what we're doing, and also we have again that has gone to many I would say dimensions like ecological conservation, public health, transboundary water protection, all these aspects. So yes, we are engaged in so many activities. Especially we have like two counterparts, one in the United States side and one in Canada.
Oh, one in Canada.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
cool.
it's across the entire North America. That's pretty much what we do.
Okay, yeah. I mean, these are both great initiatives. Since you're the president of the student organization here on public health and the environment stuff, can you talk to me a little bit about what your initiatives as president are and what you have accomplished so far?
Unfortunately, we just started the academic
you
year
just
for
started,
this
right.
year, so we have so many exciting things coming up in life. And also, UIC, we have it's called the Office of Sustainability. UIC is planning to become more sustainable in its own ways. So in future, so we are kind of helping build up on like how to lead your life in a more sustainable way, how to acquire more healthy habits, not just healthy for yourself but for the environment and the community, things like that. Of course, like as a country, like if you take the United States, we have more than 300 billion population. So
350 million about?
yeah, so as we all know, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
as a country, we have that responsibility. So going again a bit to climate and public health, we can see climate injustice happening. So the actions you take will impact people who are not contributing to the climate change as much as you do.
Right, yeah.
So that's why we should be responsible with being a country with this much of technology, with this much of population, industries. How can you choose to make healthy decisions? so that people outside the United States do not have to suffer. Again, going back to Chicago, like we're in Chicago, and I don't know whether you remember, but in 1995 we had the Chicago heat wave.
Okay, the Chicago heat wave.
Yeah.
1995? Okay. There was one in Washington earlier this year.
So yeah, we lost more than 700 Chicagoans for that.
700?
Yes. Can you believe it?
That's a lot.
So even though I was talking about like outside the U.S., within the U.S., that was one big situation where climate injustice was raised or brought to the limelight, because as you analyze the people who suffered, who were affected mostly by the Chicago heat wave, we saw mostly vulnerable populations were African Americans, poor people, and elderly. So it's affecting our lives and health. So that's why we should be more concerned about it as academics, as young professionals, as millennials, I would say.
Wow. Okay, so I had no idea that the Chicago heat wave killed 700 people. That's a lot of people. We had 60 people die in Washington earlier this year, and I was like, that's a lot of people, but 700 is, wow, okay. I mean, so that's crazy. I mean, it's great that you guys are doing this, and it's great that you're running this. So you talked a little bit about your initiatives as president and kind of like how you want to get people to live in a more healthy way, not just for themselves, but also for the environment, so that we don't affect people who aren't really contributing as much to the climate change. So now I'm gonna just have you talk a little bit about what you're doing with the North American Youth Parliament for Water, right? Okay, yeah. Just tell us a little bit about kind of like what you're doing with that, and kind of like what the leadership roles you guys are providing for young people and stuff like that.
So again, like I said earlier, we have taken many initiatives. One of them was when it comes to water. I don't know whether you're familiar with this, but in Canadian counterparts, we had many contamination issues going back. Like in the history, we have had a bad history, yes. And so there were people, especially not Native Americans, we call them First Nations.
Oh, okay.
In Canada, yeah.
Okay.
They were mostly affected by this contamination issue, mercury contamination.
Right, just like in America.
Just like in America. So we recently had one campaign where we kind of raised awareness among the young populations, like young kids.
Mm-hmm. How little?
Not just like, I think they're teenagers, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. So because they have to understand what they're facing, because they're living in an environment that could be potentially contaminated, and you have to be aware of your surroundings. We all have to be aware of our surroundings. So sometimes people, everyone we see, everyone we come across today do not have access to all this information. So again, as academics, as activists, it is our duty to spread awareness, like what you do today. So that's one thing. Apart from that, we work also with another organization called Suki 222. It's Suki 222. Yeah, it's a non-profit organization. The basic goal of them is again to help achieve SDG 6. So they're working in, I don't know, perhaps more than 30 countries around the world. Spreading, providing them with water filters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
for schools, community centers, villages. And apart from that, when it comes to my research, I'm also working on stuff like that. For an instance, I have some research going in Kenya.
Oh, you have research going on in Kenya?
Kenya.
Oh, very cool.
So yeah, it's like they don't have access to quality water, and as public health professionals, we know how important it is to gut health, or else it will lead to stunting. The children will not reach the optimum level of growth. Then that will impact their later lives, finding jobs, and that would be a entry to the vicious cycle of poverty. Okay. So that's the one entry point that you can control. So we are working on that.
I see.
That's some of the stuff I did, and also I was engaged in one research, again going back to climate change, with these increasing temperatures.
Whoops. Well, I broke the tripod, but I think we're just going to keep going here, so. I saw this totally interrupt. What were you? So you were talking about the children in Kenya.
Yes. Yeah. Then vector-borne diseases.
Yes, waterborne disease.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I'm sure you're familiar with Lyme disease.
I've heard of Lyme disease.
Yeah. So it's a tick-borne disease. Ticks are the vectors.
Yes.
So with the increasing temperature, they go into new habitats. So higher altitudes, which did not have this tick parasite earlier, is now a good environment for them to survive. So they're spreading to higher altitudes.
Oh.
And when it comes to, like, from my research, we saw that there is a southward and a westward spread of Lyme disease. It was earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, it was earlier like limited to some part of the US, but now it's coming towards like the more western states, like, yeah.
Oh wow.
And it's also spreading northward, like it's going to Canada. Canada. Yeah, Canada didn't have this disease earlier either. So those are pretty interesting things and scary things.
Very scary.
Yeah, that we must know, and that's why we should be responsible for our future generations, because we are the ones who are causing this issue.
Yeah.
And they have nothing to do with that, and that's why we should be accountable for our actions.
For sure. Okay. Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that Lyme disease was like spreading. That's another. I guess this is just another consequence of climate change.
Exactly.
We're just going to see like spreading of more disease too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you said you're doing a PhD here in public health. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of like what your goal with that is, and like what you kind of see yourself doing with that?
That's a big question. I have so many plans, but
just talk about one that's really important.
yes. So let me generalize this entire thing to one concept. I consider myself a trustee.
A trustee. Okay.
A trustee. I would tell everyone the definition of trusteeship. This concept was first introduced to me by the late Judge C.J. Veeramantri. He was the vice president of the International Court of Justice.
Okay.
He was the one who taught me about this. It's kind of realizing your responsibilities towards the environment you live, the future generations to come, and the fellow earthlings.
Right, okay.
So I believe myself a trustee, and I believe you are a trustee too. That's why you're spreading this awareness, and you believe.
I believe.
Yeah, you believe in it. So with this PhD also, my whole goal, I see myself as a trustee. So how do I bring this public health, give public health access, good quality life to people, vulnerable populations that indeed need that? Again, talking about climate change. I think World Bank, according to World Bank, there would be more than 200 million
climate refugees. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I've been telling people that. It's scary.
It's scary. So can you imagine what the health conditions they would be facing when it comes to water, sanitation, and hygiene?
Terrible.
Basic needs.
Basic needs. Yeah.
So I believe we are responsible as people who are educated in this field. We have the ability to not in a way to support, make these important policy changes, policy decisions that will make an impact and help us change the way we are moving as a society. So that's basically what I want to do.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's super admirable. I love that. I tell people on campus, 200 million climate refugees, that's a lot of people to see. And I love that you're working towards this. If our viewers could take away one thing from this interview that they could go do or that they could support, what would that be, Bhagya?
So we in America do not sometimes realize how important every single choice we make is to the well-being of our world. So even if you make a single choice, say if you go to the restaurant and you do not finish your plate, you don't realize that's a big thing, but it goes to the whatever your leftovers go to the landfills, and they end up there, they produce methane, again they contribute to the climate change. So that's just the simple decision you make. You can just take whatever you can eat, not extras. Or you can just simply switch off the light bulb. Like
Switching off
these
the light bulb, yeah.
simple things that you make every day can go a long distance. Recently, Yale has done a study, like they have been doing it once every 2 weeks, 2 years.
Okay.
It's called the Climate Change in American Mind.
Climate change.
Yeah, you might like it. But it's a great manuscript. So they study how, because public opinion determines kind of significantly contributes to climate change policies in the U.S.
For sure.
So we're seeing good trends. I mean, people are believing that global warming is happening because earlier people did not agree that it's happening. So it's a good thing that's happening, a good, I think, progressive change. So we can also contribute it to this movement just as a person. You have that ability. What do you say, that do not underestimate your power, right?
Yeah.
So you have the power to make all these decisions, and you are the ones who would be raising your kids and teach them how to lead a healthy life, healthy again in a way, to healthy to your community and the environment. So be the trustees of today and tomorrow. That's all I can say to everyone.
Okay, yeah, be the trustees of today and tomorrow. Those are some pretty simple things to do. Just turn off the lights, try not to have too much food waste. Thank you very much for this interview, Bhagya.
Yeah.
And so this has been Yujin Tang coming from Chicago. And I've got another interview in Chicago, but otherwise, next time I'll see you guys in Indianapolis.